Hey everyone, in today's video lesson, I will show you how to set up systems of equations given word problems and how to use the methods of substitution and elimination to solve them. In this assignment I am requesting that you highlight the important information in each problem that will help you write the two equations. Then you should be typing out your variables that you choose to represent the unknowns, and then tell us what those variables represent. That means define your variables. Next, you want to write your two equations. That is your system of equations that you will use to solve the problem. Next, use the methods of substitution and elimination, depending on the section you're working on, to solve the equations. You can refer to the notes that I linked here. You can also refer back to the previously shared video lessons on the methods of substitution and elimination. I recommend that you always check your answers by substituting your answers back into the original equations, and that's how you can test whether or not your answer is correct. Lastly, make sure to explain what your numbers, value, responses represent by writing a sentence or two that describe a solution or an answer response to the original question. We will start with this example, which is a problem you should recognize from a previous class. A board game allows players to trade game pieces of equal value. The diagram shows two fair trades. This is one fair trade here. This is a second fair trade here. The hotel is worth $2,400. How much is a car worth? Explain your reasoning. Here, I'm going to say, also, let's answer the question, how much is the house worth? So the two unknowns happen to be the value of the car, that's how much it's worth, and the value of the house, that's how much the house is worth. We do know the value of the hotel, so that's actually a given. So let's start by stating the unknowns. That's defining our variables. Here, C equals or represents the value of the car. The next variable, H, equals, meaning it represents the value of the house. Now that we've defined the variables, we're ready to write the system of equations. That means write the two equations. The first equation will represent this first part of the image. Here we have three cars, that's 3C, plus an extra $100, and that is equal to the value of a house, in this case H. The second equation, coming from this second image, or the second fair trade, we have two houses plus a car plus the $100 equal to the value of the hotel, which we know from the description above is $2,400. Here are the two equations we will use to solve this system of equations. So now let's go ahead and start by saying we know H in this case happens to be, and I'm going to use some color coding, we know H happens to be the variable that's currently by itself. That is key when solving using the method of substitution. You need one variable to be by itself on one side of the equal sign. It's currently on the right side of this first equation, so H is by itself in the top equation. Some of you might be thinking, well, isn't C by itself also in the second equation? It's not by itself in that on the left side of this equal sign, we have all of this, 2H plus C, and also the plus 100. We could get the C by itself, but there's no need to do that extra work if we already have this H by itself. However, if we did want to get C by itself, to use that for the process of substitution, we could get rid of this 2H by subtracting 2H to both sides of the equation. And then we could also subtract this 100 from both sides of the equation, which would also move it to the other side, leaving us with the C by itself. But again, that would be a little bit more complicated, and sometimes you will actually need to do that in some problems. But for this one, it's set up where we can already take what the value of H is, or what H is equal to, not the exact value, but what H is equal to in this case, we could take all of this 3c plus 100, substitute it into the second equation where the h is. So right where the h is in the second equation, I'm going to replace this h with everything that the h above is equal to. So I will start by copying and pasting this equation to start my process of solving. And I'm going to replace this h with this 3c plus 100. I can just copy paste it here. And notice I'm putting it in parentheses. The parentheses are important because that helps you remember to distribute here. So now that we have this brand new equation that really only has one variable, it shows up twice, but the only variable is the c. There's the c once, there's the c a second time. So the only variable we have is c, meaning we can actually solve for an exact value, an exact number. So let's start by distributing 2 times 3c, that is 6c, plus 2 multiplied by this positive 100, that's positive or plus 200. And then from there, we bring everything else down. So I could just retype it or copy paste it. I'm ready to continue solving this equation by now combining like terms. I'm going to combine like terms. The first thing I did, I should have typed out here, is distribute the 2. Okay, so it is helpful to write your steps because that shows your ability to think through the problem and that you do understand each step to solve the problem. So I do ask that you also try to write that step out. So next, I'm combining my like terms. That means I need to combine this 6c with this plus c, or positive c. So those are 2 like terms, and the other 2 like terms would be the 200. So notice I'm color coding them as a way of just remembering what it is I'm combining. That 200 gets combined with this 100. So my new equation, 6c plus c, that is 7c, because again, c by itself is just a 1c. So it's 6 plus 1, 7. And then 200 plus 100, that would leave me with 300. I bring down what's left after. I can just copy paste it or retype it. That's equal to 2,400. I continue to solve this equation, which is now a 2-step equation. So now I go ahead and subtract 300 from both sides. So I am going to subtract 300 from both sides. That's both sides of the equation. So I could, again, skip writing this piece out as long as my description is written right here. So then I will go ahead and show that when I pretty much combine these two 300s, they cancel each other out, leaving me with just a 7c equal to, what is 2,400 or 2,400 minus 300, that is 2,100 or 2,100. I now have a 1-step equation. To find c, I need to get rid of this 7 that's being multiplied by c. That means divide both sides. Divide both sides by 7. When I divide both by 7, this 7 goes away, leaving me with c is equal to, and what is 2,100 divided by 7? That is 300. You can always double check your answers in a calculator if needed. And I will go ahead and highlight this first answer. Notice the way the original problem is written, this is all we're asked to give, but remember, as I stated earlier, I am going to ask for the purpose of this one that we actually include the value of the house as well. So now let's take c equals 300, that's the cost of the car, and plug that back into the original equation that we haven't used, that we didn't use right now to solve. So I'm going to take this equation and now use it below here. So that's 3c plus 100 is equal to h. And when I substitute, again, I can just copy paste this and right here, replace c with a 300 in parentheses. I can now go ahead and simplify. So what is 3 times 300? That is 900. Again, bring down the rest of the equation. So now I need to do 100 plus the 900, or reading it in order, 900 plus 100, and that leaves me with 1000. So 1000 equals h. That is the second part of my solution. So I will highlight it to make it stand out. So what does this mean? In a sentence, I can conclude that, the car is worth, let me put the dollar sign, $300, and the house is worth $1,000. And I will highlight this in another color, or I can use the same yellow just to show that they correspond to each other. So the car is worth $300, the house is worth $1,000. That is my final conclusion, explaining the values of the two unknowns in this case. So use this process to solve the next two problems in this assignment.